Well, I'm back out working on the Cabrio today. Looks a little different probably than what I had shown in the first video in the series. I got a little more removed here to get it opened up to compare the part that was shipped to me in the mail to what's already in the car. So pulled the fender off of the front here. Also opened up this little valance area here that's covering the windshield wiper linkages and motor and all of that. There was actually a little more damage that I couldn't really see, and you can see that I got the actual top of this pocket that was pretty much most of the way rusted and gone anyway, but I just hit it with a saw in the two spots where it was still hanging on, and it just popped right out. Then actually back here behind it there's a rust hole going into this little valance area, and those two parts are actually connected right there, so I don't know if it was tack welded through there or exactly how it is, but on the new part you can see that the guys that cut this out were nice enough to include that little section here of this of that valance, the notch here being where this bundle of wires here sits down into that U-groove. So I actually have enough metal there that that rust hole can go away, as well as all the rotted damage going back into this piece of box section that's the structural member that kind of ties the firewall forward to the front of the car where the radiator support is up front. So it's looking good. I'm pretty happy with the part, what they sent. So I'm just kind of out here right now and got some lines drawn. Got my blue Sharpie, which works good for, especially on a red car, for kind of doodling in some cut lines and everything. And so part of what I'm looking for, knowing that I have a good enough piece of metal, what they sent was going to be big enough to repair all of the pieces we need to repair. Now I just kind of have to make the decision about where do I want to start cutting and stop cutting, and what do I want to leave behind, what do I want to replace. And I've kind of just made a decision to cut through here. I'm laying out against some of these existing holes. I spent a lot of time measuring around. The parts are actually slightly different. You know, the bolt holes here where the fender mounts up, those all seem to measure out between the two. However, some of these holes here, which are I don't know if those were part of the die stamping process, if those were like an index type hole that fitted into the die, but this one seems to be here in the right location. This one here is about an 1/8 inch off between the two parts, and it's also a different size hole. So that's the corresponding hole on this part over here. So I'm just kind of trying to be a little bit careful about what reference points I'm picking up from to try to index these two parts back together. So using that one, but spent that time measuring and was able to establish a couple of points here in order to draw my cut line right there. So ultimately once I cut this out, because this is connected along the bottom here and it's connected along in here, this is going to be the part that's going to go away. This will stay, and then I'll use a weld seam right there to fill that back in, and then kind of wrapping around the front, this bracket that kind of comes down right here and attaches it to this portion of the subframe will be removed with this part, and they included it here on that old part. But since this bracket, it flexes, it moves, it's not hugely sturdy, So you can't really just, you know, expect that we can just throw a bolt in there and then it's going to line the part back up how the part wants to sit in the car. So I'm kind of trying to be careful enough to make sure that that my datums are going to be good and they are going to move, and that I don't end up cutting. Well, the real risk is just cutting something too short or too small to where I'd have to fill metal in and puddle metal in, and I think spending this little bit of extra time up front here is going to pay off. Ideally I can get all my lines put in just right, get it cut right accurately along those lines, then I can trim this part up, the new part that I have, using those same datums that I've established on the car here, and ideally that new part should be able to set right in, and all of the seams will line up. Maybe just need a little massaging here and there to get the weld gaps right, but beyond that it should just go right in. So you can see here I got a line drawn along this valence here, and I'm actually using this this hole that was just plugged as a datum on that. I've established that and on the car here and on the new part is going to be the same, so there'll be a saw cut that kind of comes down there. I'm still working on the line that will connect that cut back into here, and then the saw cut needs to come back this way, and then you can kind of see where that would continue up and then over the top here. And then also this is a drain hole that allows this valence below the windshield to drain, and it actually, the inner fender and the fender enclose this down, and this is actually one of the places down here where that hidden bolt is for the inner fender, and this was just full of crap. Leaves and stuff, it was just packed in up to about here, and it's all over the ground right below me there, but and there was a little bit of rust damage in here because of all of the crap holding moisture in there, and then you can see how thick some of this caulking, some of the sealant was that was sprayed on here where the fender attachment point is. So that made that fun to try to wrestle the fender off with all of that glue on there. Anyway, so some of these lines are kind of interesting to try to draw because of the compound shape, and it doesn't really come through as well in the video, but that shape's got kind of a lot of movement going on in there. And one of the things that I've found to be helpful, I just got a couple, I got my ruler there, and then I was just using this kind of somewhat flexible ruler to measure all of the different datums in between the different parts that I'm using to establish those indexing points. But then this is just some flashing, aluminum flashing that I cut on my shear. So I know it's square from the ends, and it's square to the cut lines. And this kind of makes it nice and easy to try to draw straight lines onto complex curves. So I guess kind of the idea being here is that no matter how you bend it and everything, those two lines on either side, they want to stay parallel along the plane they're following. So I can pick up a point on either end, lay this ruler in there, and then this gives me a kind of an actual straight edge to draw against. And now you can twist it, and you can see if you push in the middle and you try to make the whole thing lay flat, that you'll actually get some twist in the ruler, and that it'll cause the ends to shift up and down and everything. But really, the key is that what we're worried about is not having the whole ruler lay flat. We just want the top edge of the ruler that we're going to be drawing against to lay flat and follow the contour, and then the bottom in many cases just kind of floats away from the metal. But what this does is it allows us to draw that line on there, and really what we're looking for is a repeatable line that we can draw. I don't really care if it's straight or otherwise. I just want this line here, when I line up on the top edge of that hole and on the bottom edge of this hole over here, I want to be able to come back over to my part over here, lay this ruler on in the same way, draw the same line, and when I cut it, I want the parts to to line up in the same way that they need to. So that's all that is. And this could be anything. This could be poster board, or like PVC sheet, or like even some of that like clear plastic off the back of like some packaging. Just anything that's stiff enough that it's not gonna tear or whatever while we're you know, smushing it around up onto these curves and stuff to get these lines drawn in here. So you can see I got a few done. This section's looking pretty good. I'm gonna have to do some more thinking and figuring out about this section over here. So you can see that the rot is, you know, this is the firewall and this is the under fender side, and there's not much left coming up and through here. So even though on the new part that was shipped, it seems like they left like 3/4 of this opening here, which would put my cut line right down in through here, it starts to get really, really close to being in where this rotted material still is. So I'm hoping that it's okay enough to weld to once I trim this back a little further. But there's a good chance that even after I continue this line on up around here, I might have to lay in a piece of filler material or something to tie back into where material's good and connect that all in. But we'll see. So right now, I think the primary goal with this is to just get some lines drawn on it, get it cut out, and then I'll see what the metal looks like another 1/2 inch back from where it's rotted out here, and then make the decision at that point. So, but either way, when we're done, the part should, once I get all my layout lines done, once I cut along all those lines, get the new part trimmed up, then that new part, I should be able to set it in, and then ideally I would have done a good job, and the piece will set right in, and everything will be lined up where it needs to.